Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Lingability. I'm your host, Madeline, and it's great that you're joining me today. So, this podcast is aimed at intermediate learners of English, where we look at interesting topics and help you improve your English along the way. Today's episode is going to talk about a question I think many of you might have thought about. Could you live without your smartphone? Now, smartphones have become such a big part of our daily routines that we often don't even realise how much we use them. But what if we had to live without them? How would our lives change? Could we still live our lives as we do now? In this episode, we'll take a closer look at the role smartphones play in our lives. We'll look at both the positives and negative effects they have, and what happens when we try to step away from them. We'll explore whether it's actually possible to live without these tiny computers, and why taking a break from them might just be one of the best things you could do for your health and happiness. Let's start by going back in time to see how the smartphone came to control our lives. In 2007, the world was introduced to something that would forever change the way we live: the iPhone. Of course, there were phones with the internet before the iPhone, but Apple's new product was a big improvement. Apple reinvents the phone was the phrase that Steve Jobs used, meaning that they invented the phone again. Now, the iPhone wasn't just a phone. It was like a tiny computer. You could browse the web, send emails, take photos, listen to songs, and also download apps or applications. Suddenly, you had access to almost anything, all in the palm of your hand. Within a few years, smartphones became the must-have product. By 2012, over 1 billion people around the world own smartphones. And a billion means 1,000 million. And this number has only continued to grow. Today, in 2024, 54% of the world's population owns a smartphone, and that is 4.3 billion people. But what exactly makes them so essential? Well, they do everything. You can call your family, message your friends, browse the internet, shop online, book flights, watch videos, listen to music, and even more. For many of us, our whole lives are run through our phones. They've replaced our cameras, calendars, notebooks, music players, and even our computers in some cases. They really make our lives easier in so many ways. But this leads us to the question: do we really need our smartphones as much as we think? That is what we are going to explore today. Before we jump into the disadvantages of smartphone use, let's take a moment to talk about the many benefits that they bring to our lives. One of the biggest advantages of having a smartphone is the ability to stay connected. Whether you're sending a quick message to a friend, video calling family on the other side of the world, or using social media to share moments of your day, smartphones have completely changed the way in which we communicate. You no longer have to wait weeks for a letter to arrive in the mail. Now, communication happens in seconds. For example, let's think about WhatsApp. This app alone has almost 3 billion users across the world. It's become an essential tool for people who live far away from home, allowing them to keep in touch with loved ones for free. And it's not just WhatsApp. Apps like Facebook Messenger, Telegram, and even texting has making staying in touch very easy. Another big benefit is access to information. Remember when you had to go to a library to find information? Well, I don't, because I'm quite young. But with a quick Google search, you can find out anything you need to know in just seconds. Need to know how to get to a new restaurant? Just open Google Maps. Want to find the meaning of a word? Well, you can just type that into Google. Want to learn a new skill? You can just watch a YouTube video. Smartphones make learning and finding new information easier than ever before. Speaking of learning, smartphones are incredibly helpful for language learners like you. Whether you're using apps like Duolingo, listening to podcasts like Lingability, or reading articles in English, your smartphone gives you lots of opportunities to improve your language skills. And smartphones have also allowed us to better plan our daily activities. The calendar app reminds us of appointments, alarms wake us up, and the Notes app can help us with our to-do lists. In a way, our phones have become our personal assistants. Smartphones definitely make our lives easier, but using them too much can create some serious problems. And the more we use them, the more they start to negatively change things like our mental health, sleep, and also how much we get done. For example, have you ever felt like you're spending too much time on your phone? Maybe you've picked it up to check one message and suddenly an hour has passed while you've been looking at Instagram or TikTok. I think it happens to all of us. And the truth is, smartphones can be very addictive. Now, this means that they're hard to stop using. Personally, I've always found YouTube to be particularly addictive. I can watch videos for hours without realizing how much time has passed. Especially because YouTube keeps recommending so many good videos to me. And because of this, I've had to block YouTube everywhere. Or I don't think I'd get anything done. In the UK, people spend an average of between 3 and 4 hours a day on their phones. And over a whole week, that's nearly 28 hours. That is more than a whole day spent in front of a screen. And we're not just losing time. Being addicted to one's smartphone, also called smartphone addiction, has been linked to increased levels of anxiety, depression, and also stress. One of the reasons smartphones can make our mental health worse, i.e., how we feel, is because of social media. When we look at Instagram or Facebook, we're frequently comparing ourselves to other people. We see other people's exciting lives or perfect holiday photos, and we start to feel like we're missing out. And in English, we actually have a name for this feeling: FOMO, FOMO, or the fear of missing out. Now, this happens because social media shows us only a small part of people's lives, and it's easy to forget that we're not seeing the full picture. As a result, we might feel unhappy or like we're not good enough. In fact, studies have shown that people who spend a lot of time on social media are more likely to feel lonely, sad, or have low self-confidence. I think it's strange, isn't it? Social media is supposed to connect us, but it often leaves us feeling more alone. Then there's the effect on our sleep. And you'll know all about this if you listen to the first episode of this podcast, which was called The Science of Sleep. So, the blue light from screens can negatively change how our body produces melatonin. And melatonin is something that helps us to get to sleep. When we use our phones late at night, it's harder to fall asleep. And even when we do sleep, the quality of our rest isn't as good. And let's talk about productivity. This means how much you get done in a certain amount of time. You might think that having a smartphone helps you get more done, but the opposite can often be true. Messages, social media, and apps all make it harder to concentrate. How many times have you been working on something important, only to get pulled away by a message or a quick look at your phone? And as phones frequently break our concentration, this makes doing hard work more difficult. Imagine how much more productive we could be, how much more we could get done if we weren't frequently checking our phones. So, why do we find it so hard to put our smartphones down? Why do they feel so addictive? Well, the answer lies in how they are designed. Smartphones and the apps we use are designed to keep us on them for as long as possible. Think about social media platforms like Instagram or TikTok. The longer you spend on these platforms, the more advertisements they can show you, which is how they make money. In a way, it's like you're paying for these free services with your attention. These apps are carefully built to give you little hits of dopamine. And dopamine is something that your brain produces that makes you feel good. When you're on these apps, every time you get a like or a comment, your brain sends out dopamine and you feel rewarded. And the same thing happens when people play video games or eat sugary foods. And many of these apps also use something called infinite scroll. This means that you can always keep viewing new photos or videos without ever reaching the end. This makes it hard to stop, as there's always something new to see. And the more we scroll, the more time we spend viewing more stuff, the more time we spend on our phones. And this makes it harder to break a social media habit. Now that we've explored both the benefits and the disadvantages of smartphones, let's discuss the big question. Can we really live without them? The answer is, it depends. For some people, smartphones are essential. If you have a job that requires frequent communication, or if you live far away from your family and friends, it can be hard to imagine life without your phone. Smartphones have become necessary items in the professional world as well, from managing emails to arranging meetings and connecting with colleagues. They make it a lot easier for us to work and also to communicate. Think about people who work in medicine, delivery drivers, or even journalists. For these people, smartphones aren't just helpful, they're essential. In emergencies, they help organise life-saving efforts or deliver goods to people in need. So, in these situations, living without a smartphone may not be possible. But for the rest of us, our smartphone use is less about being essential and more about habit. We check our phones frequently, sometimes even when we don't need to. Have you ever picked up your phone, scrolled through your apps, and then realized that you didn't really have a reason for using it? I definitely have. That's because smartphones have become such a regular part of our daily routines. They're almost like a habit. Could we break that habit? Absolutely. Which brings us to an interesting question. What happens when we start using our phones less? One way to challenge our smartphone habit is by using them less, even if it's just for small moments during the day. It doesn't have to be a permanent step. I'm not talking about throwing your phone in a bin, but reducing how much you use your phone can bring clear benefits, helping you to connect again with what's around you. Many people report feeling more relaxed and less stressed after limiting their phone use. This allows them to concentrate more on activities that they find useful or enjoyable. Maybe this is reading a book, working on a project, or just enjoying a moment of peace without one's phone. Another important benefit is that using our phones less can make our relationships and communication better. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone only to realize that they're glancing at their phone or at their Apple Watch? I definitely have. It's a common experience, and it can make us feel less connected to the people that we're with. Frequent phone checking takes us away from those deeper, more enjoyable conversations. There's also a direct link between how much we use our phones and sleep quality. As we mentioned earlier, the blue light from screens hurts our sleep patterns by harming how we produce melatonin, which is something that helps us sleep. When you reduce phone use, especially in the hours before bedtime, you'll likely notice that your sleep improves. And better sleep means you're more rested and better able to handle the demands of daily life. Sleep is essential for one's well-being. It helps your body to recover, your mind to work better, and also makes you better able to handle stress. And what about the time you gain? How often do you say, I don't have time for that, when thinking about a hobby or a project that you'd like to start? However, we often have more time than we realize. It's just that we spend it on our phones. By reducing time on one's phone, you can get back hours in your day that would otherwise have been lost to scrolling. Imagine how much more you could achieve if you spent that time doing something that really mattered to you. Maybe reading a book, learning a new skill, or working on a creative project. I think these activities often bring us more happiness or pleasure than social media ever could. Let's now talk about mental health. Social media, in particular, can make us feel like we're comparing ourselves to other people. We only see the best parts of other people's lives, which can make us feel like we're not doing enough or that we're behind in life. And this cycle of comparing ourselves to other people can just make us feel bad inside. By spending less time on your phone, especially on social media, you can give your mind a break, taking time away from all the updates and the perfect pictures that you see on these platforms can help you concentrate more on your own life and your own achievements without always comparing yourselves to others. It's easier to feel good about yourself and be happier with where you are in life. Finally, spending less time on your phone is about making time for the things that are more important. Things like getting better sleep, building stronger relationships, or enjoying some quiet time. It's not about getting rid of technology completely, but about choosing how you spend your time and attention. So, can we actually live without our smartphones? It's a difficult question because, as we've seen, smartphones can be so useful. For many of us, they've become an essential part of our lives, helping us stay connected, informed, and also more efficient. However, living without them or using them less is possible, and it could be a really positive thing to do. What's important is using smartphones in a way that works for you. It's not about removing smartphones out of our lives completely, but rather using them in a way that helps our lives instead of controlling them. By setting limits, taking regular breaks, and thinking more carefully about how we use our phones, we can take back control of our time, attention, and also well-being. In today's world, living without a smartphone might seem impossible, but as we've discussed, taking a break from technology, even just for a small while, can be really positive. Smartphones are incredible pieces of technology, but they don't have to control us. By paying more attention to how we use technology, we can create healthier habits. And these can allow us to enjoy the benefits of technology without feeling stressed out by it. So, the next time you've picked up your phone for the 100th time today, ask yourself, do I really need to be on my phone right now? Maybe the answer is yes. Perhaps you're using it for work or to stay in touch with someone. But maybe the answer is no. And in those moments, why not put your phone down and enjoy what's happening around you? Whether to read a book, spend time with loved ones, or just to enjoy the silence. I think there's a lot to gain from stepping away from our screens, even just for a little while. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Lingability. I hope today's discussion has given you something to think about and maybe made you think more about your own smartphone use. If you found this episode helpful, I would encourage you to listen to it again. Re-listening or listening more than once is a great way to improve your understanding and learn more English each time. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. We are now on all your favourite platforms. So you can find Lingability on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and YouTube Music. And of course, you can find the transcript of this episode in the episode description. Until next time, take care. Bye.